In this video, I'll be showing you the testing procedure or the pressure gauge procedure for the range piston or the range cylinder. And I'm also going to show the same test gauge procedure for my emergency range bypass valve. So right now we're starting off at 0 psi, and this hose here is coming from the slave valve, and this here where the gauge is pretty much the air cylinder. So to determine how much pressure we're getting to the air cylinder, we disconnect the line and put a gauge in its place. So this here is the line that's disconnected from the range cylinder, and this here is the gauge where the range cylinder goes. So normally, this pipe here would be connected to where the gauge is. If you didn't watch my video on this valve here, this three-way valve, you should watch it. I've got a separate video on it. So I'm not going to go over too much in this video about this here. And this pipe here in the right is air straight from the air tank. So I think we'll start off with my emergency test valve. So at 0, we're supposed to have 0. And when I turn this valve on, so right now up is normal. So we're getting no pressure right now because the range valve inside the truck is on the off position. So when I flip this valve, this lever that way, it's going to block off the normal air pressure from the slave valve. Whatever is pressure or no pressure, it's just going to close it off, and it's going to allow air to flow from the air tank to the gauge. So we should get about 100 psi. And you heard that burst of air because while the valve is closed, it's actually exhausting on one side from the air regulator because it's too much pressure for the regulator. And that is just about 100 psi. And the nice thing about this is we're at 0 again. See, I just shut off the valve. Do that again. So that's the emergency valve. It's working. So now we'll move on to testing the range valve. So on the valve itself, if you didn't know how to drive the truck, it actually says on the valve itself there, up high and down low. So right now it's pressed down. So for low range, now theoretically that pipe there should be low range, but we're seeing 0 psi. But just to test things out, flip this to high, and we're at just about 50 psi. So the valve and everything is working, but these pipes here might have been put in the wrong place. So when the cylinder is down, we should be getting pressure there, because the manual says that the back of the piston is where the high pressure goes into, for high range, high range. As you can see, that pipe is coming right from the back of the piston. That one on the left there is more towards the front. So I'm going to recheck the manual. And I mean, I guess it's possible that the truck might be different to another truck, where the gears inside the transmission are flipped, so that the front of the cylinder is the high range and the back is the low range, or vice versa. But really, I'm going to the full test is going to be when I put this pipe back on and connect it to the full air pressure. If I'm still in high range, that means this pressure, this here, is the high range pipe and not the low range. So the pipes have been swapped out for some reason. Yeah, because basically what this valve does, it just bypasses everything. So this allows me to do a shop test in the vehicle, an in-vehicle shop test. So if you look at the shop test and the videos on YouTube, you can just send air straight through from the tank to the cylinder to make it move. So it just bypasses the slave valve, the pipes, the range valve, the little hoses, seals, and all that, and nice straight air pressure straight from the tank to the gauge. So if I'm still in high pressure, and that means this is a high range. Sorry, if I'm still in high range, when I connect this valve back on, that means this is a high range pipe. The reason I'm doing this test is because I had the air tank pipe connected to the opposite side of the tank, where for some reason, for the design of the tank, the safety designs of the tank, you don't always have air pressure there. So I had to change this hose around, and then to make sure we're getting air pressure here. Now, if you don't have a gauge, you could just, if I were to remove this gauge, then air would come out of here when I flip this valve, right? So you could do it that way, but it wouldn't give you a precise number. And the nice thing about this here is this tells me the air regulator is working properly, because the truck is at over about 100 psi, but the regulator is only sending about 50, 52. So that's the air gauge valve, or the air gauge test for the Eaton 13 speed. By the way, most trucks won't have this valve. This is my invention. So your procedure, if you don't have the valve, which you probably don't, is that instead of, you just have the gauge connected straight to this pipe here. Again, just replace the cylinder with the gauge. So this pipe here, you connect the gauge right to it.